Good morning, good morning. How was that little video? I was so excited when I was shown that this morning. So this is day 3 of staying stuck and the impact of that. And yesterday, if you were here yesterday, we talked about why staying stuck was a problem and how it could be serving you. And that was kind of a confronting thing. And we learned to question our why we're choosing to reset now. And why bother? If it's been working for you, why bother changing it? But then I think you get that sneaking thing inside that, something's not working, but you just don't quite know what it is. I shared one of my stuckness stories with you about my mother in her wheelchair and of how staying stuck actually kept me in a relationship for 25 years, but it kept me safe and secure. So that was my benefit of staying stuck. You also had little worksheets, access to worksheets, so you could go deeper into your own stuckness behaviors. So hopefully you've started filling out those and you're starting to get some realizations or some aha moments, which is good. So today we're going to talk about the personal impact of staying stuck and just go into that a little bit deeper and how it affects everything in your relationships and your family, sometimes in your career as well. And also, I want you to understand that you can change your perception, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So you can move forward, which will enable you to actually grow and do what you want to do in life. Okay, so if this is the first time you're joining me for the 10-day Crush Your Inner Critic series, that's okay. You can get access to all the other trainings by accessing my website and clicking on the action steps. So I'm Pamela Hartnell, co-founder and CEO of MindFit Mastery and your empowerment strategist. So today, reasons for staying stuck. There's a lot of reasons that staying stuck impacts you. And the biggest one is that it impacts your quality of life and leaves you with those unspoken feelings that something's missing. I know that I was really happy on the outside, and actually I was happy with doing what I was doing too, but there was just that little voice inside me that felt like I was missing out on something, and it was creating a longing. I don't know if that's the right word. It wasn't my word. I felt like I could be doing more and having more, then I just thought I was like being like selfish or greedy, or I was made to feel that by comments anyway. Because to the outside world, I had everything. I had a beautiful home. I had a job where I coached 6 months snowboarding in Australia, 6 months snowboarding in America, and that was really, really good. But you can be happy but not be fulfilled. Maybe that's what it is. So now I don't know how you're keeping yourself stuck or staying stuck, or what feelings that you've got. But so I just want to explore a few ideas, bounce around a few ideas and see if any of them sound like you. And if they do, that's good. Make a note on your sheet. So getting stuck then can be doing the same thing over and over again, like Groundhog Day, which not only boring, but you don't grow emotionally, mentally, or physically, and you can lose that zest for life, or forget what passion feels like, or maybe even forget what real fun feels like. I don't know if any of you know Dr. Joe. I love Dr. Joe, and he talks about wake up in the same morning, drinking your cup of tea out of the same cup, eating your food out of the same bowl, going to the bathroom, doing all the same things in the same order as you do, and you have a quick conversation while you're eating your breakfast on the run as you hurry up and get dressed, to hurry up and go to work, to hurry up and have conversations with people at work, to hurry up and have conversations so that you can finish up with your clients, and then hurry up and have lunch, and hurry up and have more conversations of the same with your people at work or your clients. And you hurry up and get home so you can hurry up and have tea, so you can hurry up and go to bed, so you can hurry up and do the whole thing all over again. It's insane. So you just don't grow. You get bored. No wonder, we're like robots on automation. And if that goes on too long, you can become numb, and then you get indifferent. And then you swing between living in the past that you can't change and thinking about all the amazing things that used to happen. Why do we always go there? Or worrying about a future that hasn't even happened yet. So, and obviously, all of that means you miss out on being fully present in the moment. And to be quite honest, that's that. Because the present moment is all we really have. Yeah, I know that sounds like a cliche, but it also happens to be true. So I don't know how much of that sounds like you, or if any of it is you. But there are other things. What about working in a job you don't want because you need the money, rather than going, I'm going to do this job while I'm working towards doing what I really want to do? rather than just staying there, or staying in a relationship that's not where you want to be, but maybe you're not happy, but you're not unhappy either. I know that's where I was for a long time, as I think I said already. And someone's just tuned in. Mark Sullivan, you worked out your Facebook user thing. Good job. Good morning. And Santosh, good morning. I'm here with my worksheet ready. Fantastic. Now, hopefully some of that rang a bit of resonance with you, Santosh. And Parker's joined us. Oh, yeah, the go-go life is exhausting and directionless. Yeah, it can be when you're on that merry-go-round of repetition, Parker, that's for sure. So maybe you're holding on to friendships that are not working. I know I recently had to let go of a friendship because it wasn't supportive. They probably think it's for other reasons, but it wasn't. So I think when we want to make changes, it's hard, but holding on to all those other things is even harder. There's a quote that says, there's two quotes that just popped into my head. In my head's like this. Two quotes that popped into my head. And one was like, you will move on when you release the need to hold on, or when you're as Cohen, I think. And then there's another one which says the biggest thing is holding on, not making change is regret. So they just popped into my head. And I'm like a squirrel sometimes. Like, oh yeah, I want to share that, and I want to share that. I have this brain full of things that I want to share. Anyway, so we can get stuck, and we get stuck by all of those different things. And you've probably got other ones that are keeping you stuck. And like I say, I don't know what's keeping you stuck, or if any of those resonate you, but you do. And I think fear of being left and lonely and can be one of your biggest reasons for not getting unstuck. One of my biggest fears was about being left on my own, and which would always obviously trigger my unresolved childhood abandonment issues. So the problem with that is when you get frightened to make changes, or frightened to just do anything to rock the boat, you have to do something else. And then, so you tell yourself it doesn't matter, that you pretend you don't really care, that you don't really want to do your passion. You'll do it after the kids have gone, or whatever. And then you don't end up following your dream or spending time with the people you're caring about because you're too busy ruminating and wishing things were different, or, changing things in the too hard basket. And so, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, there's a million reasons why we can stay stuck. What about caring about too much what other people think? Jesus, I know that I used to care about what my neighbors thought. Like, how fun is that? None of it's any good for us, and people that you care about are never going to be truly happy because they're not seeing the real you either. So it's like impactful all the way around. Now, some of that sounds like you, write it down. And don't worry, you're not alone. Nearly every one of my clients struggles with some version of that. And the biggest impact I think that has on our life and how we live our life is that you can end up just existing rather than living. And if you're a parent, that's particularly crushing for your children, because your kids are watching and listening to everything you say and you do. And your words and your actions and how you deal with stress and how you deal with each other, how you deal with problems as and when they arrive, they're creating a blueprint. Think about that. They're creating a blueprint in their minds for your children, and that will impact how they do things in their adult lives. Children are like sponges. Why do you think you do some of the things that you do? Which reminds me of, I want to do some TikTok videos. So I've been watching a lot of those lately, and there's been a lot of them there with little kids, being really smart, which is kind of funny. But then there's those ones with the little toddlers who've got their milk bottles, and they're launching them across the room going, oh, for sake. And they're swearing, and they're barely walking. And I kind of think that's bad. I know people think it's funny. I actually think it's sad. I see a lot of kids that are like that I've got clients that are like 8, 9 years old, and they're angry little muppets. And, but the kids are growing up thinking that's how it is. And that's how you react to things, because they've watched it over and over. So their environment is shaping them, just like your environment has shaped you. So you're not to blame for the way that you act and the way that you're doing things. I've got a friend who used to call ants damn ants, because that's what her mother used to say when she was like stamping them out when they're all over her kitchen counter. So I want you to understand, I guess, that we learn from our environment. You learn from your environment. Your kids are learning from their environment, and your parents learn from their environment. So, how, it's like, who am I even listening to, right? So, which is another thing. But you got to understand that your environment that you grow up in and the environment that your children grow up in are creating roadmaps, future roadmaps for how they'll see things and how they'll hear things, and it'll become typical of how they'll handle things later in life. And actually, that's kind of responsibility when you're a parent, don't you think? So Parker's just said, I do like that. The blueprint that we create in our lives becomes that of our experiences. Yeah, it's like emotions are a record of the past, Parker, right? So if you react to something, it's not usually got anything to do with that person in front of you. They've just shown you something that's happening in the past. So, okay, what else? Then we can keep ourselves stuck by listening to the wrong people who don't want us to change. How's that for one that's keeping you stuck? So for me, listening to the wrong people in my life meant pretending things that I really wanted to do weren't important, that I should be satisfied with where I am because I've got a beautiful house and I'm doing all that traveling. And that made me feel guilty because, I did have a beautiful house and I was traveling and I was having an amazing life and I did love my job. But, and there's just that something that's missing. And so I kind of convinced myself that maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I'm being unsatisfied and I should be satisfied because compared to what I grew up in, what I had was like chalk and cheese. So it's like I was living like a queen. And High Tech Mother says, yes, the roadmap is often created by society, but it's not always the best one for us. 100%. No, it isn't. It's, it's other people's opinions. And it kind of falls into that. I think I talked about it on Sunday meditation where you're constantly absorbing millions and millions of bits of information per second. So, but you're only processing consciously a few bits of that. So, you don't even know what's in there that you've absorbed until you get challenged by something or someone, or you react to a situation. No one outside of you's got the power to make you feel whatever it is you're feeling right now. So they just triggered something. You should be like thanking them. Thank you. I don't like it, but thank you. You just showed me something that's unconsciously sabotaging me. So going back to where I was with listening to the wrong people, I convinced myself that I was happy. I was happy enough, but I wasn't really living my passion or following a dream. But I did feel guilty because I did have this lovely world, like I said, but I fell into that pattern then of being, I'm not really happy, but I'm not unhappy either. And it's kind of like a no man's land. And the biggest problem with that is you end up blaming people then for the way that things don't work out, or that they are for where you find yourself, or that you're not happy because then you can find another reason. So you blame everybody else, and obviously that causes arguments. And the backlash of that, when you want to change things and from blaming and all that stuff, it's a headache. You probably think, it isn't worth it. I know I decided that. So another thing I think keeping stuck, I mean, there's millions of reasons, and I just want to share a few, but the self-doubt it creates because you're not doing things, so you're not failing at things, and that's a whole nother beast, and we'll come to that another time. But when you fail at something and you go, okay, that didn't work, how can I do it again? How can I redo it so it will work? You get a level of success and a level of belief in yourself. But again, that's a whole nother thing too. For now, I just want you to think about how you're doubting yourself and your capabilities so much that maybe you won't even try to change, because when that happens, that just exacerbates those feelings of boredom and hopelessness, and you can get apathetic. And a lot of times people turn to distract themselves through alcohol or drugs or whatever other way. I know I took to exercise and being creative and tidying my house. So it's a vicious circle, and it can be a vicious negative cycle. So like I said, there's a lot I'd like to share about staying stuck, and hope what I've talked about so far, but I know that I'm limited with time. So hopefully what I've given you so far is just a starting point and gives you something to think about, and you can add your own. And if you feel like sharing it in the group and starting a conversation, that would be amazing. But really sit down and think about it. How am I keeping myself stuck? And, what am I doing about it? What have I tried that's worked? And what have I not tried that I could try? But before I leave you, actually, there's another thing that just popped in my head. That's the concept of perception. You might remember yesterday that I talked about how stuckness might be serving you, and I shared about my mother in the wheelchair, that she was benefiting from being there. She actually felt like she was somebody. So I want to ask you, and I want you to write this down, or it might be on the worksheet actually. But what if being and staying stuck was just a perception that you could change? Think about that. What would you do? Would you do whatever it took to make that change? Because I can tell you that's a challenge, and you'd have to commit. So would you be willing to commit to making that change regardless of the fallout? And we're going to work on this later in the week. But remember I said too that if you think you're stuck, and this is why it's just a perception, because if you think you're stuck, then you will be stuck and you won't look for a way out. But if you think, no, I'm not really stuck, I'm frustrated and I'm like, but I'm not really stuck, then you'll go off and you'll look for a solution. And I'm not saying, making those changes and working on whatever you've got to do to make changes is going to be easy. It creates all sorts of chaos with the people around you. But when you do want to, I want you to go in 100%. You need to be committed to the process and be very open and honest about what you're doing to keep yourself stuck. And if you take that responsibility and you explore every other possibility without self-judgment, you'll be really surprised at the results you get. I've got clients that have been very challenged by my asking how their stuckness was serving them. Some of them got really offended. but when they, and I just said, stop, just pretend, just entertain the idea. And when they did that, and they really listened to what was keeping them stuck, and if they were responsible for keeping themselves stuck, how were they doing that? They could change their understanding. They hushed up their offended ego and really thought about it. They set themselves free because they really understood that they did have a choice. Now, and I know that can be like confronting and whatever, but just entertain the idea. Okay, if I am keeping myself stuck, how am I doing that? And what would happen if I stopped doing that? And just by changing your perception and then doing whatever you need to change with your behavior, you can make different choices. So I'm going to ask you, and to ask yourself honestly, how are your behaviors keeping you stuck? And I want you to listen with real intention of actually hearing, rather than just going, snapping an answer. Really sit with that thought. Ask yourself it over and over again of, how am I keeping myself stuck? And you'll be quite surprised when you really listen what you actually discover. And I know you can because I've done it myself. So Sebastian's just said, this makes a lot of sense. We have a choice, but we are brain trained to not listen to that inner voice 100%, Sebastian. And there's a reason, and Parker says, I really love this program. It's helping me a lot. Thank you, Parker. I really appreciate you sharing that. So if you want to live life on purpose, okay, I guess I should finish up then, because I've just caught sight of the time when I read that message. If you want to live on purpose, you can't grow by staying committed to your old and negative patterns of behavior just because they worked for you in the past. Maybe they were relevant then, but they're not relevant now. And it's probably those behaviors that are limiting you and keeping you stuck. And so if you want your life to improve and you want to do your life on your terms and live with passion and live on purpose, you're going to have to move. And you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable as you make those changes to get unstuck, right? So you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is probably about the best thing I can say. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that change gets rocky. Nobody around you wants to change because they like you as you are, because you're keeping some behavior that they're subscribing to in place. And Sebastian says, oh yeah, success does not live in our comfort zone. You know what? It doesn't, Sebastian. It lives just on the other side of that comfort zone. Okay, cool. So team, if you could put the link up for today's worksheet. So as with every day, there's a worksheet that goes with this little mini training, and you can access it by clicking on the action steps. And feel free to do, or don't do the task. You don't have to. It's just a suggestion. But when you do it, don't be half-assed about it. Just go all in, play 100%, and be as honest with yourself as possible without judging yourself, okay? Because that's the only way real growth can happen. And answer the questions without self-judgment. And Tony Moore says, well said, Pamela. Thank you, Tony. I'll take that. So tomorrow then we're going to go into that need for resilience and what happens when you do want to start making changes and how that impacts everybody around you and how they will do whatever they take to keep you from making changes. And of course, we'll talk about the resources you'll need and what to do when it becomes too hard. So until then, I want you to do what I always want you to do, and that's to live your life large and live it with passion. Reset, be authentic, and be you. Bye for now.